Hello, hello. Welcome back to the Living in Alignment podcast. And I am here today with Jenn Cohen. And I'm really excited for this conversation. I think you guys know that talking about intuition is one of my favorite things to talk about. And Jenn has always been fascinated by the power of intuition, and her journey into understanding this deeper intuitive space began in her early 20s after a personal experience following the death of her father inspired her curiosity of how intuition would guide her life. Throughout her 27-year career in the entertainment industry, collaborating with major studios like DreamWorks, NBC Universal, IMAX, and Warner Media, Jenn discovered that some of the most impactful decisions often stemmed from intuition. Her unique approach and insights not only set her apart, but also led to her career advancements and recognition in a highly competitive field. After stepping away from the corporate world, Jenn embraced her calling as an intuitive consultant, applying her skills to help both individuals and organizations unlock their potential. Today, she empowers clients from individuals to executives to entire teams with practical tools to gain clarity, recognize blind spots, and make decisions aligned with their goals. Jenn's programs and coaching sessions are designed to cultivate a stronger sense of purpose and enhance productivity, creativity, and connection in professional settings. Jenn's work supports individuals and companies alike, creating pathways for growth by blending intuitive insights with actionable strategies. She is dedicated to helping her clients break through self-imposed barriers, trust their inner voice, and achieve greater fulfillment in both personal and professional realms. Wow.
I'm like, that's me.
Yeah, that's you. You're like, oh my God, she's talking about me. Um, so I love this. And I mean, I'm fascinated by intuition too. And the older I get, the more I feel like become more and more in tune with it. And right now I'm going through a lot of transitions, and I've just been kind of allowing myself to be guided, trying to turn off the reasoning that comes from other people, first of all, and know that the answers are not outside of myself. And then just really noticing that like everything is a sign. Like I'm getting if I could just see everything as a sign, then everything just kind of makes more sense.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
I would love to hear a little more about your story, like especially the part about after a personal experience following the death of your father, kind of that was kind of the big thing that kind of sparked this whole path for you,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. That
Can you
was
share more
the
about that?
Sure, sure. That was kind of the physical realization. I'd always been sensitive as a child growing up, and that worked in well with kind of the role that I was instructed to take as a girl in the family. Um, and at the young age of 20, I had just started my junior year of college when I got the phone call that my dad had suddenly passed unexpectedly,
Mm,
and went home and very quickly had his funeral. And I remember not talking for that entire time. It was just like my throat had completely closed up.
mm,
Family members had come in. We had his funeral. Everyone came back to the house, and it was just too overwhelming for me. And I went back to my mom and dad's bedroom and lied on his side of the bed, and it was in complete darkness. And I was just crying in agony and just kind of
mm,
calling out, God, what do I do now? Why? Um, in complete despair. And then all of a sudden, the light next to the bed flashes on and off and on and off.
mm,
And I immediately stop crying and I just kind of look over and now it's off again. And so in complete darkness. And I just asked, I said, Dad, Daddy, is that you? Flashed on and off and on and off.
wow.
And it was in that moment that
It's got chills.
yeah, yeah. Which is another sign that our intuition is always,
Mm,
kind of confirming for us. Um, in that moment, I knew that there was something else. There was another realm, and that he was going to be with me.
Yeah.
And so went back up to college and continued to get these signs of I'd be walking down a street and like a street light would go on and off. And
Mhm.
it wasn't, a flicker, and it was happening, and that's what intuition is. It's the ability to understand something immediately without conscious reasoning. That's the definition. But it's also a feeling, and when your intuition hits, it's a knowing, and no one can talk you out of that. No one's going to say, "Oh, the light bulb is faulty," and all six of those street lights that just you're walking under. And it's just like, okay, you can explain that away, but that's what's happening. And he would show up in other ways throughout my life as well. Um, but I was grieving, and as a 20-year-old, got real stuck on the anger part of grief,
Mhm.
and in that anger of him not going to be there for the milestones of my life, I turned over my profession to him. And I said, okay, if you're not going to be here, if you're not going to be able to make sure that I'm safe and to be my dad and to make sure that, I know all the things that you weren't able to tell me in because I was too young, then I'm handing over my profession to you and my career, and you are going to handle that for me. And I heard very clearly, absolutely, will be my
Mhm.
pleasure. And in that pact that we made, I was able to trust and know that that was taken care of for me, and that I did not need to worry, have so much anxiety around it. Because in college, that is a lot of what are you going to major in? What are you going to do next? And that was taken. And what happened after that, and where, our traditional understanding of intuition is once we trust in that, and once we kind of release that control, and once we give that over to our sixth sense, to our knowing, to the universe, to source, whatever you want to call it, it will show up in signs. It will show up in synchronicities. And as I was, preparing, I was a pre-law major, which was so not for me. Was so for my parents. And I remember going to the job board. This is back when they had a job board that was in physical, and like I had a cork board, and seeing basically a classified ad to be have an internship with a company that had nothing to do with law. It had to do with promotions for studios and things like that, and it was like outlined in like bright lights for me, and it was just like, that's it. That's the way you're going to go. And I started that internship, and it led to my first job at DreamWorks, and from there on, my career in entertainment. And he would show up in these signs as I was, on a job interview. He would show up with ladybugs on like a 52nd floor, building. And I knew to turn around and look at the window, and there's a ladybug. And so like things like that, he would show up all along the way. And he would show me these, intuitive signals and signs, and that became my kind of guidance of understanding how I tapped into intuition through his examples.
I love this so much. We have a lot of similarities, actually. I lost my mom when I was 18
I'm
in a car
sorry.
accident. And I was just getting ready to go to college, and I almost didn't go because my father, my brother, we were all just a mess. I mean, it was, tragic and sudden. And um, but my dad, said she would have wanted you to go. So I went, and just like you were saying, like the being a freshman in college, it's all about like, what are you going to major in? And I was having this experience where I was having these dreams where my mom would like be sitting on the side of my bed in my dorm room, and she'd be telling me things to tell my brother and my father that she didn't get to say. Uh,
Mm,
and it was And it was like, it was cool because I felt like I was hanging out with her, but then I would wake up and I'd be completely like traumatized because I realized it was a dream and she wasn't there. And now I'm back in my full blown grief. Like, I feel like I just was with her and now she's gone again. And it was like this daily thing that was happening where could barely function in school. Like um, I remember I was in this French class and they asked us to go around the room and we each had to read a sentence out of this book that we were studying. And the sentence that I was given was Anne j'aime tennis, which means Anne loves tennis. And my mom's name was Anne and she played tennis. And I like read it and then I got up and like ran out of the room and was like crying. And I would go to the school counselor to like try to get help with like this stuff that I was dealing with. And, the counselor is basically trained to help people find their major. Like that's what they're dealing
Right.
with
Right.
freshmen, maybe some homesickness or something. But like what I was dealing with was like beyond that. Like it was just, it was, I don't know. And it was just a lot as a young person to be to be dealing with that. But what helped me the most was when my grandmother, when I came home for break, my grandmother got me an appointment with this woman who she called herself a psychotherapist, but I feel like she was a lot more than that. She was kind of an intuitive herself and just very spiritual woman. And I told her about the dreams and I said, I feel like I'm cursed. Like my brother's not having these dreams, my father's not having these dreams. Like it's traumatizing me and why me, And she said, "You're not cursed, you're blessed." She said, "You're the one that she's choosing to communicate with." And when she said that, like everything changed for me after that. Like I started to see the signs and hear the guidance and see it as that instead of like what's wrong with me? Why is this happening? Why, like I'm a victim of this is happening to me and
Right.
instead like turned it around to I have a connection with my mom who's like on the other side, So
It's so cool. It's so
yeah.
cool. And your mom was not going to give up on on that. And um just for the listeners, like and you know this, but every touch point of that story was orchestrated by her,
Mm-hmm.
which is
Mm-hmm.
so beautiful. And a lot of intuition is trusting even through the obstacles, um, that you're gonna be guided there. There just might need to be a couple more steps that, um, and expectation is the quickest way to shut down your intuition. So I love that, you were able to have that conversation with your grandmother and then find that angel soul, that was able to give you a different perspective. That's beautiful. And your mom is still contacting you, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I lost my dad a few years ago, and he became, my best friend in the whole world after this happened. Him and I weren't close before she died. She was my person, she was my rock, but
Mhm.
her death caused us to come together and he became my best friend. And he just passed away a few years, I guess it'll be 7 years ago, in the beginning of April. So soon, about 7 years ago. And I took care of him at the end of his life. He lived with me and stayed with him till he died. And um, I feel him with me so strongly because I
Yeah.
had him for a lot longer than I had her. She's been
Yeah.
gone for almost 40, it'll be 39 years this year, which is crazy for me to even imagine that I've been living for that long without my mom.
Yeah. 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 There's that point where you've been living longer without them than
Yeah,
you were
because I
with
was
them.
only 18 when she died,
Yeah.
and now I've gone 39 years without her, which is crazy. And it was the
Yeah.
weirdest thing was so she died when she was 43.
Mhm.
And I'm 56 now, but when I turned 43, and especially when I turned 44, I was like, I'm older than my mom ever was. Like that
Yes.
always felt it still feels weird to me. Like I look in the
Yes.
mirror and I see this old lady. My mom never got old. Like she never got wrinkles or gray hair or any of the
Yeah.
stuff and when the doctors say, does your mom have, when you have something going on and they ask if there's a history, I'm like, no idea because,
Right.
you know. She was
Yeah.
healthy and then she died young. So,
Yeah. And
but
when your dad came through, were you completely open to that as opposed to, yeah, the 18th?
yeah.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I don't know if you've ever done this, but one of the things that I do when I've been, as I shared, going through some like big transitions, huge challenges in my life recently. And everything started right after he died. It was kind of planned that way by the people involved in the situation, knowing that he was my rock. And once he was gone, like I became more vulnerable, whatever.
Hmm.
So when I feel like he would be the one that I would turn to for everything, and he wasn't here. And so now when I feel like I really need something, like I mean, I feel like he's always guiding me anyway, but if I really need like an answer, I'll write in my journal. I'll write like, "Hi Dad, like this is what's going on and I just really want to know what your thoughts are about this. I'm going to turn the page and let me know." And I turn the page and I just start writing,
Hmm.
and it comes out, and it comes out in like his words, even like the things, just it's bizarre. But I feel
Yeah.
like, it's a way that he can communicate with me very clearly in words,
Yeah.
and that works. So I don't know. Have you ever done
I'm like, we are really aligned on this. Yeah.
that?
I'm like, whoa.
Get my
So,
tissues out. Oh,
well, thank you for sharing that because a lot, it's tough. It's tough and it's healing and it's all the things, but I really appreciate it. So when I decided to leave my corporate job, that was very clear as well. And I can talk about those signs in a bit, but I moved into a house that I was guided by my dad to purchase in 2017. I moved in 2021, moved back from Manhattan, New York. And um, Valentine's Day was always a big one for my dad and I. And, he would shower me with stuffed animals and, flowers and a lot of the synchronicities happen on Valentine's Day for me around him. And so I was in my new home for me, and I love Saturday Night Live. Was watching Saturday Night Live, and there was a musical act that came on, and it was a musician that was associated with my dad, and I go to put it into my Spotify, just the song, and like I just hear very clearly, grab the pen, grab the paper. And I should just back up 1 second. When I was unpacking my boxes in the house, I had so many pens and so many journals, empty journals, always with the intention of I'm gonna journal, and I would hear a voice saying, "Test the pens, just test the pens, see if there's ink in them." And I threw out hundreds of pens, I swear, that I had just collected over the course of the years, and it was I would hear, "Keep the journals and keep the pens nearby." So I walked around the house and had them nearby. I had one in my car. And this song came on and it triggered an emotion with my dad and pushed pause on Saturday Night Live. And now it was Valentine's Day because it was 12:30 a.m. Valentine's Day, and literally filled up 3 whole journals in the span of 4 days of automatic writing from him.
wow.
And it was basically the blueprint for the next part of my, and I'll put in quotes, career. But it was really the purpose, that when I had asked him all those many years ago, to take care of the career, to take care of the profession, he had come back and said, "Okay, here's the next step. It's not going back into this corporate world. It's starting a business of your own, and it's teaching intuitive studies, basically. It's not only teaching it to people, but it's teaching it to companies because this is where we're headed. This is how it's going. Entrepreneurship is also a huge part of our future, if not the part of our future, as corporations start to merge and get smaller. And people are much more in their sovereign self and saying, I'm doing what I want to do. And so I relate extremely well to the writing communication with my dad, and it's as I've evolved in my studies around intuition, I'm able to channel much more easily and can just ask him a question and then I'll get the answer right, pretty much either right away through hearing him, or he will guide me through some steps in order to get to that answer. But those steps are vital for my success and knowing of that answer.
It's interesting because like I was saying, the older I get, the more I feel just guided all the time. And it's hard to say, like it's not always clear that it's my dad or my
Mhm.
mom or
Right.
if it's just my guides or it's just my higher self. Like so for example, I've been kind of stuck in certain ways for the last few years just because of my situation. Kind of, I've been allowing myself to be kind of stuck in victim mode and
Mhm.
feeling justified to be there because of what's been going on in my life. And I've been doing a lot of healing work with plant medicine. And now I'm working with a hypnotherapist that's been phenomenal with just helping me. And I was in this session recently with this hypnotherapist, and I had my eyes closed, and he was asking me questions, and I had tears streaming down my face. And I was like, I'm done playing small. Like, it's something clicked, and I'm like, I'm playing small. I'm being a victim. Like, no, like, I'm not going to do this anymore. Like, I need to move forward in my life. And then, it was just like this huge breakthrough, right? And then I went to bed that night. I woke up in the morning and I started journaling and like kind of like what you described, like everything was just explained to me exactly what was next for me. So I don't really know if that came from my like I say it came from my higher self. Like it's like for example, I've always known, especially in the last, I don't know, even when I was taking care of my dad at the end of his life, he said to me, your message is bigger than you're allowing it to be. And I
Mm,
said, I know.
wow.
Like I'm really good at what I do, but my message is bigger than that. Like, like I teach marketing, right? And I'm good at that. And I've been doing that for a long time and I love it and I'm passionate about it. But I have a message beyond that that's about love and healing and that's why I have this podcast, because I can talk about all that stuff here that I can't do in my other types of work that I do. But my dad said that to me. He said it to me multiple times. And I said, I know. Like I've always just known that. Like there's something in me that's big and I've been just not really allowing it to come forth. Even when I was in New Zealand, I met a guy who became like my spiritual teacher and he said to me, "You're a healer." And I was
Hmm.
like, "I know." But then like I wouldn't own it. I wouldn't do anything. And so in this session, and it was only like a week and a half ago or something, I was in this session when I started crying and I was just like, okay, I'm ready, like it's time and I'm not playing small anymore. And like I said, the next morning I just started journaling and it was like just so clear to me, like what I need to do and why it took until now for me to get
Yeah.
here. Like, because I needed to go through all the stuff I'm going through now to be able to serve in a bigger way than I could have before. And it just all made so much sense to me. So anyway,
Yeah.
I'm bringing this up to say like, because I feel like some of the people listening might be like, well, both my parents are alive. So how
Yeah.
does my intuition work?
Right.
And I don't
Right.
think it really has to do
No.
necessarily with, you know, uh, communicating with people that aren't here anymore. I think there's a lot.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. It's an energy. And because we are human on this physical world, a lot of times it's just easier for us to identify that way. And so, yes, it's an energy. It's tapping in to our intuition in a way. Like it's not our job to hunt down our intuition. It's our responsibility to place ourselves, in a space where we can hear it. And so, I'll even catch myself sometimes where I'm trying to identify, and I'm trying to hunt it down and like identify and say, okay, this is how it's going to come in. And that's not it. It's just, through tools and practices and complete, surrendering that we can receive that. And as you said, intuition has no reason to keep you protected. It's not here for smallness. It's here for greatness. And that's, our critical mind is here for smallness and for keeping us safe in quotations. And that's the side that seeks that judgment and those differences. And even when you just said, I can't talk about this in my other form, like intuition's challenging you on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So for somebody that's not like tuned in to their
Mhm.
intuition and just hasn't had experiences like this, like what would be the thing that you would say would help somebody know, like distinguish between if it's their intuition or if it's just some fear? I mean, I know intuition doesn't show up in the form of fear. Like at least
Right.
that's my understanding. Like
Correct.
if you have a thought that feels like urgent or rushed or out of fear, that's not your intuition. That's your ego,
Hmm.
right? Or your,
Hmm.
you know.
Yeah. Yep.
But what would be a way that you could tell people to like know, like notice when that guidance is coming through?
Sure. So the first step is, I've been asked so many times, do I have intuition? And everybody has intuition. It's female, male, everybody has intuition. It's our what they call our sixth sense. I believe it's our first sense. It's, kind of the first sense when we come out of the womb. It's our intuitive knowledge, knowing what to do. Um, it's in order to connect the quickest with your intuition, it is a grounding in your body. It's being in your body, and you can know when you are relaxed and when you're open and when there's space almost in your chest area, your shoulders go down your back. You're in kind of a receiving mode. When there's fear, anxiety, worry, you're you're either thinking about something in the future or kind of agonizing something about the past, and your body kind of gets restrictive and it starts to worry and it starts to fear. Your shoulders might go up to your elbows, you're contracted, you can see that there's tension in your body. And then if you can just breathe, and because breath is life, the body follows um, the mind, and then the mind follows the breath. And so when you are present, you are in your intuitive state. And that means that intuition cannot live in the past or the future. When you're in your present state, your body understands, okay, I'm safe. There's not a Mack truck coming at me. There's not a lion. I'm not about to be eaten. It's all of the things that we've picked up over the many, many, many lives, many experiences, I should say, that we're privy to. And so when you're trying to make a decision, intuition doesn't, there's no question attached when you're in your knowing,
Mhm.
because knowledge doesn't operate in language. We give language to it. And so when you can just feel in your body, oh, like this feels really good. This feels, yeah, I'm gonna just actually make this decision and go. And if it doesn't work out how my expectation, again, dropping expectations key in it, but it's farther down the line, it's okay because it's guiding me, it's giving me knowledge. And so that would probably be the quickest way, is just being in your body, understanding what it feels like to be completely relaxed and neutral. And then when you can actively put something scary in your brain of something maybe you're worried about, watch how your body contracts. Watch how
Mhm.
your mind just starts to spin around in circles.
Mhm.
And that's your left brain. That's your critical thinking. The relaxed side is your intuitive side, your creative side, your imaginative side, your expansive side, your compassion, your flexible side. It's the side of our brain that we were not necessarily taught to use as children because our parents were trying to keep us very safe.
Mhm. So would you say like to get in that present state, do you think meditation is a good tool for people that, you know?
Yeah, I think for some people, and meditation can be really painful for other people. So I always give, my clients a couple different options there. If you can meditate, fantastic. I love meditation. I also look at it as a game of, it's not, I'm not doing it wrong. If thoughts come in, it's almost like, oh my God, there's Mr. Anxiety again. There's my thought again. And then
Mhm.
I come back to my breath and I come back to my pet meditation state. And it doesn't mean that you're bad at it. In fact, when your mind is coming in with, obstacles that are perceived obstacles, it's when you need meditation the most. So I always, say that about meditation, but the great thing about your intuition is that it wants you to be joyful. It wants you to be relaxed. It wants you to be in a state to receive it, to get its memo, to get its messaging. So whether that's listening to music, whether that's reading, whether that's being outside in nature, whether that is, you know, uh, again, it's outside nature, but being by the ocean or being in the mountains, taking a bike ride, exercising, running. A lot of people get that, get hits while they're exercising or running, but they're just looking for a space. I say your intuition, your intuitive self is looking for a space that's, it's basically uninterrupted space that they can get their message to you. So a lot of people get it when they're driving,
Mhm.
in the shower, and again, it's just a contained place where you can hear better.
Mhm. So what would be the difference between intuition coming from your higher self versus like getting guidance from angels, guides, deceased parents and loved
Mhm.
ones, like,
Sure. I think it's actually kind of one and the same. There's how I tapped into my intuition, it's the more that you are experienced with it, the more that you have allowed the expansiveness to happen, the more that you practice knowing your intuitive self, knowing your guidance, it opens up for other energies to come in. It opens up for other messages to come in so that you're not fearful, so that you understand it's for the highest good. It's
Mhm.
for the highest good of the collective. It's for the highest good of the world. So, sometimes we need to start out of what is best for me and me alone, and then we can very quickly jump to, well, what's best for me in this feeling of expansiveness, in this feeling of the greatest good is good for the collective, is good for the world. And that varies. And that's what's so beautiful about intuition. It's correlated to your fingerprints, and it's yours. It's how you show up in this world for your purpose and how that is expressed for you. Um, so when I channel for, others, whether they be for people that have passed or for the highest good of people that they might be in contact with, that are still on this physical realm, and I do this with businesses as well, and it's really powerful with conflict resolution because you can start to understand the different perspective of the other person. It's coming from their higher self. It's coming from an access from a point of communication that they just might not have access to. But because you are trusting in this intuitive sense, you can hear a different perspective and you can see, just watching my clients, like have this aha moment of just like, oh my God, that is such an easier way of understanding that than this maze that I have tried to create in this story that I've tried to create in this conflict. Oh, that's so simple. That's so
Mm.
simple how why we're butting heads on this.
Mhm.
So, being able to communicate with anything, that has a soul, with animals, with your home that's trying to tell you something, with, again, people that are living, the people that have passed, and with your intuitive self, your higher self. Those are all kind of various stages of getting in touch with your intuition.
So you said you channel, are you like a medium as well?
Yeah, so I can channel people that have passed,
Mm.
and also tap in, to people on this earth. It was funny. Again, as a kid, I would, and as an adult, used to be called like sympathy pains, right? Like someone would describe something and like be like, "Oh my God, my arm hurts." Like stop talking about that surgery. And I would see like animals, like I just remember one of the first ones was a bird kind of limping along, and like I would feel it in my left leg, and like I just thought everybody felt that. Like
Mm.
I honestly was just like, yeah, that bird. Oh my God, ow! And then I asked somebody one time, they're like, what? No. I'm like, oh man, that's crazy. And so, you know, that's how I saw the world was just, through that. And then I can communicate, with that animal and just kind of like get their perspective on it. And it's energy. It's energy. And it's beautiful.
How did you discover that you had that ability to communicate with like deceased loved ones and stuff like that for other people?
For other people, it's funny. It's definitely, coming from the entertainment industry, like you want that like scene where it's just like there it is, and you see the image of the person's deceased in back of them when you're talking to them, but I could. In my years, 27 years in the corporate job, it was unbelievable how many people would show up in my office or at my cubicle or wherever I was on a show site, and they would be experiencing grief around someone who passed. And I could say something that would immediately like calm them down.
Mm. Hmm.
And it was just like a comfort. And I didn't know where it was coming from. I would just be like, I would just say something, and it's almost like you black out a little bit at the time
Hmm.
because I just didn't understand what was really going on. But I would say something, and like they would just be like, "Oh, yeah," like that. It's almost like I would say something that sounded like their loved one,
Hmm.
and that's how I just started to understand that there was this channeled messaging going on. And I didn't put a label on it because that would scare people
Hmm.
and be too woo woo. And oh God, what does she know about me? And it's just like, that's not how it works. But that's how people thought. I worked on the movie The Sixth Sense. I see dead people. That was how people believed things showed up.
Hmm.
And so it just became a guided interaction from their loved ones that wanted them to have some peace.
Mm. I love that. Can you say again, I know you said it in the beginning, the definition of intuition, something about beyond conscious reasoning?
Yeah, the ability to understand something immediately without conscious reasoning. Yeah.
I love that because I feel like I'm a very woo-woo person and I believe in intuition and guides and angels and all of it, but not everybody is. And
Hmm.
so I'm just wondering how to, like, for somebody that's just really skeptical about it all, like, how do you help them to understand that there's more going on? You know what I mean? Like that
Sure.
this is something that they can access if they're open to, because you can't really access it if you're not open to it, right?
That's right. That's right. If you're not open to it, then you're not open to it.
Mm.
And it's kind of like anything. If you're not open to, going horseback riding, you're not going to go horseback riding. If you're not open
Mhm.
to playing basketball, you're not going to play basketball. It also comes from, which I love, the Latin word intuere, which means to look at or consider from within.
Mhm.
That's intuition. And so much of the skepticism that I hear is based off of what people have heard outside of themselves.
Mhm.
And if you're determining your belief from what you're seeing outside, then I can have a conversation about that with you, and I can, go down the reason that you're choosing to believe that. And the reason that you're choosing to believe something usually comes from something within yourself that has led you to that. And when we peel back in our sessions, when we peel back with that, it just starts to offer a different perspective. And a lot of times when people are skeptical or they don't want to know about something, there's usually a fear. There's usually something with religion. There's usually something with the patriarchy. And so, again, it's touchy subjects for a lot of people. And if you have a willingness and a knowingness that you're curious about it, that's your intuition telling you it's the time. Because that's one of the hallmarks of intuition is curiosity.
Mm, I love that. Yeah, I set an intention for this year. I don't do New Year's resolutions anymore,
Mhm.
but I think I mentioned this briefly already, but I got really clear that I was allowing myself to look for answers outside of myself too much. So I set an intention that I'm not gonna do that. Like, I'm gonna just only ask for answers that come from my own guidance and from within. And it's amazing when we really allow that, what what we learn and what we know. Um, it's helpful too because I found that I was getting a lot of advice from a lot of people that really care about me with my best interest at heart, but the advice was confusing to me because it went against what my gut was saying, but it sounded like really good advice.
Hmm.
And a lot of the advice was coming from their fear of, for me, if I
Right.
didn't take their advice, kind of thing. And it was really like all of last year, I was just like, I don't know what to do. I don't know which is right. And da, da, da. And so that's why, like, this year I set this intention and I was like, I'm happy to hear what my friends and family have to say and their perspective. I'm happy to hear it, but if I can just know, like, I don't have to own any of that, and I know what's right for me and just really trust. And since I've been doing that, it's been a lot easier for me to just really like look within and know and just allow, like I said earlier, just allow the guidance and don't do anything until I'm clear, until I get the guidance.
Amazing. Amazing. Yeah.
So, I don't know. I feel like a lot of us, like you were saying, are we live our lives based on what we're being told from other people that we respect, or just in our community or in our church or wherever we're raised. And
Hmm.
it's not ours. Like, we don't, it's not ours. It doesn't come from us,
Right.
but we
Right.
we take it on as if it is.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's kind of a fear, and again, not trying to be universal, but there's that fear of abandonment if
Mm-hmm.
we go against that. And that worked when you were a child. You needed people to survive, and
Mm-hmm.
but as we age out of that, that stays within us if we don't tend to it.
Mm-hmm.
And we're able to take care of ourselves now.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a great fear in there that's instilled, and that's makes sense. It makes
Mm-hmm.
sense. And so it's being, extra graceful and with grace, with ourselves, showing ourselves grace is what I'm trying to say there. Um, and understanding that it makes sense that our body wants to do that, and that we just need to tend to that. And when we tend to that, that's when intuition can come in and say, okay, here, I know you've never thought about it this way, but try this. And I'm just going to put this in your path because you haven't learned this way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I know you said you've listened to some of my podcasts, but I don't know.
Mhm.
There's an episode, I don't know if you heard it, with this other woman that teaches intuition, and she was in a cult.
Yeah, it's a
And
great episode.
yeah, so she found her way out of the cult by finally listening to her intuition. Because I mean, when you're in a cult, you're ingrained, you're just you're what do you call it, like brainwashing or whatever you want
Oh,
to call
yeah.
it. It's so deep that you don't think for yourself at all. And when she finally was able to, like, trust that that she knows, she was able to get out of there, and I just love that example because it just
Yeah.
shows how powerful, like, our knowing is much more powerful than what we've been how we've been programmed.
Absolutely. And a lot of that is based on fear. And I'll say it's not apples to apples. And the cult, it was a great episode. I encourage everyone to listen to that one. On a much smaller scale with corporate America for me. It was, here's what you do. And if you don't, there's a line around the block of people that are coming for your job. And like, you need us more than we need you, type of a thing. And if you if,
Hmm.
if you go out, you're never working this town again, type of a thing. But like that again, it's really based off of a fear a lot of times. And that's why, the entrepreneurial, being an entrepreneur when I was, in college and getting ready to graduate college, that wasn't a thing. That was like, no way. That is way too scary. You need the stability of a corporation. People were working at GM for 40, 50 years, and even bouncing around from company to company, that was like, ooh, oh man, that's crazy. You just stay in a
Hmm.
job and then that's where
Hmm.
you plant. And so we see the evolution of that, and we see, you know, um, the power of being able to have your purpose and your career aligned, um, make people really successful and happy and joyous at the same time. And I love what you said about setting your intention. That's something that I teach with companies and with teams, and with entrepreneurs, is you set that intention and then there's goals underneath that. So I loved how you set your intention, and the goal was, okay, I can listen to the friend, but it doesn't mean that I have to take that on. And it's one conversation at a time. A lot of goals right now that I talk with people about is limit the amount of news that you intake, but that serves their higher intention.
Hmm.
So that was beautiful how you started your year.
Yeah. So what would you suggest for like anybody who's like an entrepreneur, let's say, and like what would be some examples of ways that people could use their intuition to kind of guide them to what's the best next step or the right, let's say, niche for them to be in as an
Mhm,
entrepreneur. I know sometimes people feel even like kind of how I was feeling like they're in a specific line of work because it's what they're really good at, but
mhm.
but there's a they know they're meant for more
Yeah,
and they don't always know what that is. So
sure.
like what would you suggest as far as ways to use your intuition and allow yourself to be guided in that way?
Sure. Well, I do think it's important, to talk with someone. I do think, like, when you've got a very specific way of thinking about something and it's just not working for you, oftentimes a different perspective that just needs to be unlocked. And it can be as quick as a 20-minute phone call where it's just someone that is highly intuitive can come in and just say, okay, I hear what you're saying here. That energy of what you're saying isn't matching your vibration. And that's what a lot of, the intuitive work is, here's what I'm saying, but my intuition is really screaming at me that this is not it. So it's very subtle sometimes, and that's what intuition is. It doesn't often get loud, but it does repeat itself in its subtlety. And so I'll just throw that out, and I encourage, any of your listeners. I'll give my email address. Please reach out to me. If you've just even got, a question. Um, in terms of what they can start doing on their own is, it's scheduling into your day a meeting with your intuition.
Mm.
And so on your calendar, you can put in there, I've got a 20-minute meeting with my intuition. Do it, put it in, on a weekly basis, but schedule it in and think of it as a meeting. Think of it as a meeting where where you're going to get quiet and you're going to ask questions and you can write them down, you can think them, but it is a dedicated appointment with your intuitive self. And you can ask very specific questions and you're just going to allow that to unfold. Usually, after a meeting, people are like, we're going to circle back. We're going to da 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 da. Think of that as your intuitive self. Okay, then the next meeting, oh, okay, I see that you put in my path XYZ. But then it's expecting them to come back with solutions. It's
Mm-hmm.
expecting them to come back with next steps. So I have a membership where I think of it as kind of like your corporate board. And so, it's like weekly practices and tools. And it's kind of like a concierge service where I'm in contact with your board, with your board. And we're giving tips and tools and suggestions. But that, if you can and you want to try this on your own, I applaud that, and it's the first step. Put that in your calendar. Meeting with my intuition. No one else needs to know.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So what are some other ways that intuition can help for somebody, like as far as work and success and business is
Yeah.
what are some other ways you help people with that, with
Oh,
intuition?
first, when you're tapped into your intuition, the efficiency level is unreal. Like you're just not spinning wheels. The effectiveness. I work with a lot of people in sales where it's just like, um, I'm hitting dead end after dead end after dead end. Okay, let's just pinpoint, where your intuition is trying to get you to call. And, something like 100 calls can be boiled down to half of that.
Mhm.
Um, because you're honed in and you're focused, and it's not about quality. I'm sorry, it's not about quantity, it's about quality. And if we can really tap into that intuitive sense rather than the busy work of it, it just pays off in droves. So that's one way. And then, you know, communication and listening skills. You have to have that with your intuition because if you're not quiet and you're not able to, hearing's different from listening. Listening is really embodied within you, and so when you're listening with a potential client, or you're listening, with an ear to hear what they are looking for. It's almost like your intuition can just put up bright neon lights all around that portion. So I remember being in meetings, and the meetings would be hours. I'll just take an hour meeting, and I was able to get what I needed from that meeting in 30 seconds because my intuition was like bright lights, bright lights, bright lights, and that's it. The rest was filler.
Mhm.
And so it's tapping into that. It's experiencing exercises. It's trusting your intuitive self, and those are the practices and the tools that we go with.
Mm, I love that. Do you believe that there's like a way that people can like have like a sign? For example, I did a workshop with um Ashley Easter, who was that podcast episode that you listened
Yeah.
to. I did a 3-day workshop with her, and she was one of the homework assignments was to find decide on a sign that you want to see to prove to yourself that this is real.
Yes.
And one of the signs that I've always, just not even just because of that, but just because of some of the other spiritual work that I do, sign for me is always a feather. If I see a feather, that means that, you know, divine order is at play, even though I can't see it, or I'm on the right track or whatever. Like I just see a feather as like a good sign.
Yeah.
Do you teach anything like that as far as signs? Like some people, butterflies sign or,
Yeah.
stuff
Yeah.
like that. Like,
Yes, absolutely. We teach. I discuss that, teach that, and then one of the first books that I always encourage people to read is Signs by Laura Lynn Jackson. Um, you'll love it. But she goes through those steps as well, where it can be, show me a purple polar bear, and
Hmm.
then, a cartoon of a purple polar bear will show up. And she's got so many examples and stories of people experiencing that. But that is one, um, that is a book that I would recommend. It's the easiest read. You'll devour it, and she's excellent at describing how those signs can show up and just guide you. So yes, it is a practice. Um, Daily, I write down the signs that I get. I've got a list about 4 years long on my notes app that I add to every single day because I expect it.
Hmm.
There's going to be a sign today. I've already had
Hmm.
my sign today.
Hmm.
And by showing the universe and your intuition that you appreciate that, I always, when I see my sign, I say, thank you, more please.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think I said this already, but like I've been noticing lately, like I'm seeing everything as a sign. Like like you said, like I'm seeing signs every day. They're different. They don't come in the form of a feather necessarily. It's like a message, or sometimes it comes through a song, or sometimes it comes through, just all this different stuff. And so I like that. What was it
Yeah.
that you say? Thank you, more, please.
Thank you, more please.
Okay.
Yeah. But starting with that feather, and this is where, if people are just starting out, um, ladybug was for me a big sign. And I would see a ladybug, and it would be, the teeniest, tiniest ladybug in this field. And I could see it because my eyes were directed at it. And anybody else walking by that saw the ladybug would be like, there's a bug, there's a red bug, oh, ladybug. But it's the feeling that you get when you attach, when you say the feather is my sign, okay, the ladybug is my sign, or the sign comes to you. Hummingbirds are big as well, coins are big, that you get. And it's like, oh, that's so and so, or that's my sign that this is the way that I'm going to make this decision. And then you're able to get to the stage that you were just talking about, because there's signs everywhere, but it's really understanding. It's like getting to know your ABCs so that you can then form words.
Hmm.
And so that's a great example of a first step.
Hmm. I love that. So, what are some of the ways that you work with people? Like, if somebody wants to take this further and get some help from you, do you work with people one on one? Is that right?
Yeah,
And then you also have a membership, I heard you say. So, can you just tell us like
sure.
the different ways that you work with
Of
people?
course, of course. So work with people one on one, and you can do a single session where we just dive in for an hour, or you can have packages. Those are really great because we meet on more of a frequency basis, um, some weekly, some bi-weekly, some monthly for check-ins. And then I have a membership, and I have three different levels there just to meet you at where you are in your stage of accessing your intuition. And then I also do group channelings, and
Mm.
those are fantastic. And it's a small group of people, and we meet about every monthly. And I'll send out the invite, and anyone can join. But we try and keep it really small so that everyone gets a message. And usually you'll just ask one message, and then we'll dive in. And the people that are on, it's via Zoom, that are on the video call are all just holding space for one another. And it ends up being
Mm.
really beautiful because, again,
Mm.
intuitively, it's just a collection of people that are meant to be in that space at that time, um, really supporting each other. And it's a beautiful hour together.
I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, what are some of the like what's the best way for people to find you?
Sure. My website is Jenn, Jenn, Cohen, Cohen, intuitive.com. And on there, you can email me through that. You can find out more information about my work. You can sign up for sessions. I'll be posting the next group session, I'm sure, by the time that this podcast goes live. And my email is Jenn at JennCohenIntuitive.com. If any of your listeners just want to shoot me an email as well, I'm more than happy to answer any questions. And then Instagram, I'm on Instagram at Jenn Cohen Intuitive and LinkedIn as well for the business side of the house.
Awesome. So everybody needs to go connect with Jenn and check out her stuff. Um, I know we're getting to the end of time here, but I just wanted to, I know I've just been kind of picking your brain. Or is there
Yeah.
anything that you'd like to say that I haven't asked, or anything that we haven't talked about that you want to talk about?
Oh, I've just loved our time. This is what it's all about. This is, it's connecting on that other level. And I know your viewers, your audience is going to hear it through the hour that we shared together. But this is it. Like, when people talk about intuition, that was it. That conversation was it. It wasn't anything. Yeah. And so, our expectation of what it looks like isn't what is trying to come through. So
Mhm.
it's beautiful. Thank
Going
you
with the
for having me.
flow, going with the
Yes.
flow. As
Yeah.
a matter of fact, this is going with the flow. Jen had a power outage last time we were supposed to meet for
Yeah.
this interview, and she sent me a message and said, "Going with the flow."
Yeah. Yep. That's right. That's
That's
right.
what we have to do. That's what
Yeah.
intuition is. It's just going with the flow.
Yeah. Yeah. And we were supposed to talk today.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, this has been a great conversation. It's been awesome having you on here. And just want to ask you any last closing thoughts before we end.
No, I'm again just happy to have connected with you and excited to hear about your journey.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you everybody for being here. And all of the information that Jen mentioned will be in the show notes. And we will see you back here in the next episode. Bye for now.